Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:06, and we are charging through this Thursday morning, full steam ahead. Thanks for joining us. If you're still rolling around in bed thinking, oh, just give me 10 more minutes. No, come on, it's time. Join us. We're all in this together. Coming up at 7:05, Rachel Ehrenfeld, author of The Soros Agenda, to shed some light on who's really organizing all of these riots on college campuses. 7:35, the chairwoman of the Republican Party in Maryland, Nicole Harris. 8:05, KT McFarland. And then at 8:35, Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics, new polling out. Bad news for Biden. It's Larry O'Connor, and also bad news for Biden whenever she shows up. It's Mercedes Schlapp. Good morning, Mercy.
I love your line, we're all in this together. You know, that's from High School Musical.
Oh, I know it very well.
You're all about musical theater.
I know the choreography to that song.
No, you do not.
Oh, sure I do. We're all in this together.
That's impressive.
Sure.
You look like you're doing the YMCA, but that's totally different story.
It's derivative choreography, but it's choreography nonetheless. Well, my daughters are in that wheelhouse, man. Right? They were.
I know.
They were coming of age when the Disney. I can't believe how long it's been since High School Musical. If you think
they've done like several, versions of it. So
yeah.
I think we're on High School Musical 5, but now it's like there's probably a drag queen and protesters outside of the high school. This is what we're dealing with.
At this point, the original cast of High School Musical, their kids could be in high school at this point. So
probably,
yeah,
I would think so.
That would be the next generation.
We're about to be grandparents, I'm sure, at some point, Larry. I don't know what you're talking about.
Will you please stop that kind of talk?
It's okay to age.
Like hearing that.
Like, you just got to age gracefully.
Yesterday, Karine Jean-Pierre, I'm so mad at you. Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about the Biden administration's and President Biden's reaction to the ongoing scenes on college campuses.
Here at home, there's been some dramatic images really across the country over the last 24, 48 hours, especially at the Columbia, UCLA last night, University of Madison, Wisconsin. Other campuses. Has the president been monitoring this? And why have we not heard directly from the president about these protests that have taken over institutions of higher learning across the country, the police responses, instances of violence? Why have we not heard directly from the president?
So just a couple of things. The president is being kept regularly updated on what's happening. As you just stated, across the country, he is monitoring the situation closely. So is his team. And I would just add that no president has spoken more forcefully about combating anti-Semitism than this president.
So again, we have not heard anything from him since these things began. And isn't this the guy who he can never stop talking about Charlottesville, for God's sake? He claims that that's the reason why he ran. Of course, he lied about Charlottesville in giving that as the reason why he ran. And he still talks about it all the time. But for some reason, these protests, he's mum on. Mercedes, why would that be?
I have to say, I'm actually, I don't want to say I'm surprised, but like, you would think that by now President Biden would have either spoken directly to the press, gotten some even hold a cabinet meeting. This is something that I know President Trump would do. Whenever there was something that was a major issue, he would bring together the cabinet, bring the press in, give statements. So there is something on the record coming directly from the president, sending a very strong message to these violent protesters, trying to create calm in a very chaotic situation.
Yeah.
And yet, you know what was on his public schedule yesterday, Biden's public schedule yesterday?
What?
A campaign reception.
Oh,
That's it. One event. A campaign reception.
Well, he was too busy monitoring the situation.
Monitoring the situation in his pajamas for Sleepy Joe, because he has to rest before the campaign reception to basically, criticize Trump and not deal with what we're seeing, where the students don't feel safe, where especially Jewish students, they can't go to class, and you have these protesters that are basically vandalizing and breaking into buildings.
Yes, and let's be clear. For what cause? Why are they vandalizing? Why are they breaking the law? Why are they doing these chants? Why are they illegally occupying campus quads? Why are they illegally breaking into buildings? Because they're in support of terrorists who just murdered 1,200 innocent lives 7 months ago. That's the worst part about it. It's not even this. This screams presidential intervention because it involves an international affair where these protesters are in league with a group that the State Department, the Biden State Department, affirms as a terrorist organization. So you would think a president would be all over this thing, but no. And by the way, I mentioned Charlottesville for a good reason. He lied about Charlottesville, saying that this was the reason he wanted to be president, because he had to heal our nation and bring us together. Because I couldn't believe we had President Trump saying that those Klansmen and white nationalists were very fine people. Of course, Trump didn't say that. In fact, Trump said the opposite. He said that the white nationalists and the Klansmen should be condemned at all costs. He literally said that at that very press conference. But here's Joe Biden. The only public statement he has made about these violent, illegal protests, he was asked about them, and he said this.
And the anti-Semitic protests on college campuses.
I condemn the anti-Semitic protests. That's why I've set up a program to deal with that. I also condemn those who don't understand what's going on with the Palestinians.
There you go. I condemn anti-Semitism, but I also condemn those who don't understand what's going on with the Palestinians. That's a suggestion that people who are pro-Israel don't really understand.
And I believe that was several days ago. That wasn't yesterday.
That was 10 days ago.
10 days ago.
No.
So we have not heard from the president
since
on this issue.
That was it.
Not even bringing the press pool into the Oval Office, which is exactly what President Trump would have done to say, this is uncalled for. We need to ensure that the students and the faculty are safe and the administrators are safe, and we are going to do what we can to calm the situation. They do not have a response to this issue. They are the same way they're doing with the southern border is what they're doing on these college campuses. Ignore it and pray that it goes away. Well, they don't really pray, but make sure it goes away.
Yeah.
They don't pray.
And the reason that the reason they're not doing that is because they're terrified of Rashida Tlaib. They're terrified of the squad. They're terrified of their base, who actually are on the side of the terrorists, because they think they're going to lose Michigan if they don't do this. So that's why they're silent.
But I was rarely impressed with Mayor Eric Adams.
I was just going to say
out.
that. Can I share that with everyone?
You and I,
I've got it queued up.
Think alike.
Because
go for it.
What you just said, Donald Trump would have called the president of the Oval Office, and he would have said all those things that you just said Donald Trump would say. The mayor of New York said that yesterday. Now, he said it in a press conference, but he also said it on MSNBC. Here's a encapsulation of it.
One of the individuals' husband was arrested for and convicted for terrorism. On a federal level. Once we were able to identify some of the other people, I knew that there was no way I was going to allow those children to be exploited the way they were being exploited. And many people thought that this was just a natural evolution of a protest. It was not. No. These were professionals that were here. And I just want to send a clear message out that there are people who are harmful and are trying to radicalize our children. And we cannot ignore this, that these outside influences, I don't know if they're international. I think we need to look into that as well. But there's an attempt to radicalize young people in this country.
Wow. That's the Democrat mayor of New York saying that. These are not students. These are outside agitators. It could be influenced by international operations, and they're trying to radicalize their children. And later in the day at his press conference. Oh, excuse me. Later in the day at a press conference.
If you are a parent or guardian of a student, please call your child and urge them to leave the area before the situation escalates in any way. This is for their own safety and for the safety of others.
So we got more to talk about here, and I want your reaction in a minute, Mercedes. But I don't even like Eric Adams. I think he's a lousy mayor, and New York deserves better. But he is acting more presidential,
amen,
more sane, more mature, and more adult than Joe Biden. Joe Biden couldn't even bring himself to say that because he's so terrified of the pro-Hamas lobby in his own party, and that's where we are right now. But he has a great idea, and that's to ship in more terrorists to our country, or at the very least terrorist sympathizers, and bring them in as refugees. What's the plan, and why is he doing it? We'll get into that in a moment. First, though, it's 6:15 WMAL.
News is brought to you by New Look Home Design. Later this morning in the Chris Plant Show, the Democratic Party may be anti-Semitic, but they are pro-Hamas, and Iran is thankful. 9 a.m. on WMAL.
Mercedes, President Biden is MIA. It's been 10 days since he gave that one off-the-microphone response to a reporter's question, and it was very much a both sides thing. You know, I don't like anti-Semitism, but I also don't like the people who don't understand what's going on with the Palestinian people. Silent since then. You just heard Eric Adams as being more presidential and showing more leadership, the mayor of New York. Why do you think it's because he's incapable of this? Do you think it's because he's afraid of alienating the youth vote? Is it the pro-Palestinian vote? Or is it may be this, the elites in our country, the media, the actors, Hollywood, the academics, the professors on these college campuses, they're good with they're celebrating this too. Is it the intelligentsia elite of the Democratic Party that he's afraid of alienating? What's his issue here?
Well, don't worry about the youth vote, because he's just going to completely forgive any student loan. I mean, the list goes on and on. So he's trying to win over that vote by focusing on that. Look, I really don't know. I mean, Larry, it could be so many things. I think that there is, I think within the White House, what I've heard is that there's a huge division on how to proceed on these issues of dealing with Hamas, dealing with Israel. Yeah. You know, so he is basically stuck in this, in what I would say is this tug of war between both of these groups that I think are very loud and very strong in their positions on this issue of the war. And so he really does not want to alienate the I would say the progressive caucus, which again, because AOC went after Mayor Eric Adams. Right. That's exactly what happened. So he knows he's going to get criticism from the far left, because they support these Hamas protests.
His problem is he has no moral compass. You cannot tell me over the last 50 years
100%
what Joe Biden stands for and what he believes.
Right.
Because he's either lying about it or he's changing positions to gain political advantage. What does Joe Biden believe? Joe Biden believes in advancing his pathetic political career so his family can get rich. That's what he believes. And whatever he has to say on any given day to meet that goal, say what you will about Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, Donald Trump. They were pretty unequivocal about what they stood for and what they believed. You may not like it, but at least you knew what they stood for. This guy, he has no moral compass.
It is all about political calculations.
That's right.
Is for Joe Biden. What I'm concerned about is that you don't really see him out. He is doing, this raises the bigger issue of his health, of his mental, his ability to even serve as president from a cognitive standpoint.
It's campaign season.
He had
Mercy.
one event yesterday. Never addressed this issue.
He's got procedures. He's got to go through some. He's got some little work to be done to look good on camera for the election year.
They can't fix his brain fast enough, Larry. They really can't.
The one thing that they have floated out there, the White House has, and again, an exclusive report to CBS News, which is really just CBS News getting a delivered email from somebody saying, here, I'm leaking this to you. Go ahead and publish it. There's discussions across multiple agencies right now about opening up the doors for Palestinian refugees to come here for permanent residence. All right?
Wow.
And, of course, by the way, my favorite part of the story is the biggest hurdle right now in the Biden administration's plan to unilaterally allow Palestinian refugees from Gaza to come to America is that to get them here, they have to go through Egypt. And Egypt doesn't want them in their country. Even to just transfer them to America, Egypt doesn't want them in their country.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, because I don't know if they're war refugees and they need to go somewhere to flee the war, I would think that it would be easier for them to just cross the border they've got with Egypt and stay in a country as refugees where they share a language, they share ethnicity, they share a religion, they share a common enemy. But no, Egypt doesn't want them. Jordan doesn't want them. Saudi Arabia doesn't want them. None of the countries in the Middle East want them.
Qatar. I mean, you would have to think Qatar basically. They provide safety for Hamas terrorist leaders. Why wouldn't Qatar take them?
Yeah, well,
this is what makes no sense to bring these individuals over here.
Oh no!
Mind you, they could probably go in through the southern border. It's probably easier than coming through as refugees.
I'm so sorry, Mercy. This makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. In fact, all those Middle Eastern countries and Arab countries that would make more sense. I doubt the Biden administration is even talking to them and asking them if they'll take these refugees. No. He wants them here. Here's why. You bring in these Palestinian refugees, and they specifically said in the report that their first goal will bring over the people who already have a relative living here, right? Where are their relatives living? Well, they're living in the suburbs of Detroit in Michigan. And so you flood those areas with more people and more refugees. That actually increases the census numbers there, which will give them more congressional representation. That's how the census works. It's not based on citizens. It's based on the number of people, regardless of their immigration status. That gives them another congressional district that'll look just like Rashida Tlaib's district. It also increases the number of electoral votes that state will get. This isn't about showing compassion and humanitarian love, because, I mean, they're not trying to bring in refugees from Ukraine, are they? Probably not, because the Ukrainians are conservative.
Let's take a step back.
They're doing this for them. They're doing this for politics.
After the debacle in Afghanistan, that failed withdrawal by the Biden administration, which led to the death of 13 men and women in our armed forces. But you know who they left behind were the interpreters.
Yes,
those who worked,
people who worked
side by side, our military. It has been difficult to get those individuals here as refugees. Those are the refugees you want. The ones who have stood by our military, the ones who sacrificed and risked everything to fight the Taliban in Afghanistan. Those are the refugees you want. Not this, let's just bring in Palestinians who pretty much probably hate Israel, and chances are they hate America too.
Oh,
so sorry.
No doubt.
Keep them in Qatar, keep them in Saudi Arabia. No, thank you. No, thank you.
They have literally been educated to hate America and hate Israel. They're anti-Semitic.
Exactly.
They're anti-Israel.
Exactly.
They think America and Israel are the great Satans, and we're not going to airlift them over. Last time we had this bright idea, we brought in a bunch of Somali refugees. They all camped out in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the next thing you know, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar is in our lives. And so now, this is the plan. Let's just get ready for it. And they're going to do it unilaterally with no congressional approval. They're just going to do it. And if you're against them, and if you're saying something that I'm saying right now, you're a hateful, xenophobic bigot. And if that means, protecting our country, then so be it.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:37 on O'Connor and Company. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you participating in our morning conversation here every day on WMAL. At 7:05, Rachel Ehrenfeld, author of The Soros Agenda, will be our guest. 7:35, the chairwoman of the Republican Party in Maryland, Nicole Harris. At 8:05, KT McFarland. And then at 8:35, Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics. I'm Larry O'Connor. Mercedes Schlapp. Good morning, Mercedes.
Good morning, Larry.
You and I both have, I've got one more kid in college than you. I've got two who have graduated. Your two daughters are at Notre Dame, right? University of Our Lady.
Yes.
I had my second oldest graduated the Naval Academy. My oldest graduated UCLA. And then I've got my son who's at UC San Diego right now. So that's two in the UC system. So I'm watching with a keen eye what's going on the campus of my daughter's alma mater and my ex-wife's alma mater, by the way, UCLA, home of the Bruins in Westwood, just about less than a mile away from where Andrew Breitbart used to live when we started the whole Breitbart website empire. And right now, at 3:37 in the morning, Los Angeles time, it is chaos. There are flashbang grenades going off. There are smoke bombs going off, and it's hard to tell whether that smoke was deployed by the California Highway Patrol Special Operations Unit, who are dressed in riot gear with flak jackets, helmets, and the whole 9 yards, clearing out the encampment there in front of Royce Hall, or if the smoke has come from the pro-Hamas terrorist group either. I'm not sure where the smoke's coming from. The way the police seem unfazed, I'm guessing that it was their idea. But this action began right at sundown. As the sun was setting over the beautiful Westwood Hills, an announcement was made by the police to the encampment that it was illegal and anyone who stayed there will be arrested. And the people in the encampment all started cheering. They were all excited that they were about to become victims of police brutality. And they are now...
Including the faculty. I mean, you gotta love it.
Faculty had a big professional banner printed. Who pays for all this? That says UCLA faculty stands with our students. Not the Jewish students, apparently. This encampment at UCLA on this very large quad there in Westwood, they erected, they had barriers set up, like the barriers that are almost look like bike racks,
Yeah. It's like Chaz. Do you remember Chaz?
Yo, sure. We love
Washington
Chaz.
State?
Chaz.
Yeah.
He used to be my barista at the local Starbucks. Chaz would bring me the best espresso. I love that guy. Yes, I remember the Chaz. And they got little Chazes popping up in every college campus.
But can I just say,
real fast though, these barriers that they put up with sheets of plywood that have been erected as a wall. They finally found a wall, Mercedes, that they can support that's effective, and so they're now trying to break that down. But with the barriers and the sheets of plywood, so you can't get in and you can't look in, it almost looks like the ballot counting room on election night in 2020. When they were counting all those mail-in ballots. It's like they've erected all of those barriers up so the American people and the media can't see what's going on behind those doors.
Yeah, well, I mean, the reality is that going back to even the piece of the faculty that one of the professors says, we want to send a message to UCLA that students definitely have a right to protest peacefully and to talk about their ideas. Well, here's the deal. This is not a peaceful protest. This is like establishing like their homes, their tents in UCLA, and they are violating. What basically what the rules are basically on campus.
Yeah, protest all you want. Don't break the law.
Yes,
that's all.
Yeah, go protest peacefully, and then get out and go back to your parents' basement and have Jenny's ice cream. Like, come on, like seriously, people. This is this idea that they're at the encampment, and then we have what they have like a list of things.
Yeah. So
what is that about?
Before the police moved in, they issued a list of demands, and I want to say that this was the final straw, basically, where the faculty was where the university leadership said enough, fine. Enough. This is your list of demands. All right, cops, go ahead. Shoot rubber bullets at them if you have to.
Move them out.
So this is what they needed. They wanted hot food for lunch, vegan food, gluten-free food, ice, no packaged food, no coffee, no bagels, no bananas, no nuts. Fill out this form if you're interested in coordinating a meal. We need sleeping pads. We need AA, AAA, C, and D batteries. Now, to be fair, I don't believe these are demands that they gave to the university. These are like a wish list to supporters that are out there.
Right, for those. So let me ask you.
Although in Columbia, we saw the woman who was demanding that they get meals catered in from Columbia University.
I did see that.
That was beautiful stuff.
But can I ask you, because on the list it included no lotion but no sunscreen.
Yeah.
I couldn't quite understand that.
Well,
Why no
they have
they
have an allergy to the SPF factor.
Oh, so is it kind of like because it's not a natural sunscreen,
sure.
So then they feel
Why they want lotion though makes me. And what else is going on in that encampment?
Well, they're so close together.
Well, I'm
space.
sure that there are some people studying, massage who are there.
Wait. And then what about the knee and elbow pads? What is that about?
That's riot gear. That's so.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. Oh no. And in fact, they
Look,
also
I don't
asked.
partake in riots, so I couldn't.
They asked for helmets, shields, wood, rope, zip ties. They're asking to be equipped for combat. That was the wish list that they put out.
Wow.
And there's also drone footage showing these dirt bags. And again, half of them aren't even students. These are professional agitators and protesters. There was drone footage that one of the pro-Israel people on campus took that showed them training for combat. They were actually training on how to fight and do so the police are doing the right thing. They're doing it methodically. They're going in one by one and very deliberately. The images from now 3:43 in the morning Pacific time are pretty stunning. You'll see them on television if you wish. And they are tearing down the barricades, and one by one they're arresting these dirtbags, and it's a beautiful thing to behold. And suddenly Los Angeles has gotten more serious than New York, than Washington, D.C. This is why aren't we doing this at George Washington University right now?
I know. Well, it's purely insane, and for these university administrators, they're for the most part right now they are doing the right thing of getting them off of campus and saying, look, you're conducting in criminal conduct, and this is not acceptable.
UC is part of the state system. It's a great system, the University of California system, actually, except for the ideology. If you're in the sciences, as my kid is, it's a great system. And Gavin Newsom is in charge of the UC system. And my guess, the fact that they're mobilizing this quickly at UCLA because of the image, Gavin Newsom has a future political career. And I think he made a very quiet phone call to the Board of Regents for UC and said, take care of this, finish this. We're done with this.
Yeah, maybe. I think you're probably right.
He hasn't said anything publicly, but privately.
Well, neither has our president, so there you go.
It's 6:44. We've got more craziness on campus. It is a dominant and, frankly, I think, defining story of what we're seeing unfold right now, and certainly brings everything into perspective for this presidential election year, Mercedes, because I want to remind everybody, all of these protests are about supporting the effort of those who just murdered over 1,200 people in Israel. It's absolute moral insanity that we're even giving these people a moment's respect.
Yeah, and going back to what New York Mayor Eric Adams said, I mean, it is truly about the radicalization that's infiltrating the cities and these college campuses. And
targeting our children.
I read this, and I read this New York Post article on the fact that, do you know that there's these Hamas consultants that are getting paid like $300 a day to basically teach these students how to protest?
Yeah.
I mean, they are outside consultants. Seriously.
Well, one of them, the leader, has been identified as Lisa Fifi, and she's been around forever. She's 63 years old. She began protesting in the mid-'70s, and she is literally, you call her a consultant, she is a paid destroyer. She goes in and trains people how to destroy, how to agitate, and how to set up these camps. She was all over the Occupy Wall Street movement, and now there she is at the Columbia University. You know what this is called? You know, there's a word for what she does and what we're seeing. It's called community organizing.
Yes, it is.
It's direct action community organizing. It is literally right out of the Saul Alinsky book. He wrote a book about it, Rules for Radicals. This is what they do. And this is, everyone joked about, Barack Obama, he never did anything in his life. He was a community organizer. Oh, no, he did things. This is what he did. This is community organizer. And we had a community organizer in chief. And for 8 years, he was able to community organize our country, fundamentally change it, one might say. And he created this whole Organizing for America coming out of his campaign apparatus, which was called Obama for America. Yeah. It's still there. It still receives money. And this is what they've learned how to do, and they do it, and it's usually very effective. And you're right, there are paid professional agitators who have been contracted to go in there and coordinate these things.
But I think there's a huge backlash because I do feel that Americans are watching this and saying, this is chaos, this is violence, kids can't go to school, they have, classes are canceled. You've got Jewish professors and Jewish students who are afraid for their lives. I read one piece yesterday about a Jewish student who was basically knocked to the ground unconscious, had to be sent to the hospital because these Palestinian protesters were, hitting her. I mean, we're in danger zone, like in high danger zone.
They're dressed like Hamas terrorists. They've covered their faces like Hamas terrorists. They're behaving like Hamas terrorists. And they're beating up Jews like Hamas terrorists, because that's what they are. They're an extension of the Hamas terror network. And we're getting images, they can peacefully protest. They can, we're getting images now of the peaceful protests when they broke into Hamilton Hall, the iconic building on Columbia University, which was the final straw. They shattered windows throughout the building. They created barricades of furniture and destroyed furniture. They kicked in doors. It looked like a war zone because that's what it was. And it's about time it's treated that way. And by the way, what did President Biden say about this again? Could we play that audio?
I can't remember.
Not a thing. Hasn't said a damn thing.
It's been 10 days.